Today I have the pleasure of Adam Waterworth. Good afternoon to you, Adam.
Afternoon. How are you?
I'm very well. Good to see
Good.
you. And we're currently experiencing lovely hot weather in the UK and the South Coast, and pretty much all around the UK, to be honest. And just want to tell the audience a little bit about you. You are the CEO of the Goodwood estate, overseeing all aspects of this iconic British sporting venue, known for its Festival of Speed, Goodwood Revival, and the Qatar Goodwood Festival, amongst other things. You've got extensive experience in the events industry, and including your previous role as an MD of Doncaster Racecourse. In fact, you've got many roles within the sort of racecourse world. And we're going to be exploring, I suppose, the unique challenges that you will face leading this historic sporting estate, and how to successfully navigate that to grow while inspiring teams across a diverse operations. But before we get into that, Adam, I'd like to ask you, what do you love about what you do?
Many things, almost everything, if I'm honest. Talking to you here, I'm looking out of a window which is overlooking, as you say, the sun is shining. It's a beautiful day. I'm overlooking a Grade 1 listed park. The sheep are in the field. It's the same park that will become the Festival of Speed for sort of a couple of weeks every year. Our park gets transformed into its own little sort of town, effectively. It's one of the biggest motorsport events in the world. We call it the biggest sort of car culture garden party there is in the world. And I suppose that's what I love about the job. It's a cliche, but no 2 days are the same. I love running events because I love the challenges they give. But I love the fact you get feedback immediately. We've got horse racing this week. As I speak to you, horse racing is happening this weekend, the first meeting of the new horse racing season. And you get feedback immediately. You walk around the venue and you see people smiling, or you see people upset. You see when you've got issues, and you see when you're doing it well. And that sort of immediacy of the feedback is something I've always loved. And it's that for here especially, we're dealing in people's passions, and there's something really special. It's a responsibility, but there's something really special about working in people's passions, and that's what we do. We share our passion for everything we do, be it cars, horses, golf, cricket, all the elements we do is about, we have passionate people who are passionate about that sport and just want to share it with as many people as possible. And there's something quite special in that.
I guess people come with real high expectations of events, don't they? They're investing in not just the financial side, but their time and everything else. And you talked about that, almost that feedback. I guess that makes you incredibly, as a business organization, responsive to that, almost that instant feedback and how you respond.
Yeah, you have to be. And I suppose it depends on the venue. I've worked in venues of all shapes and sizes, mostly horse racing before coming to Goodwood, but now at Goodwood, as you say, a number of sort of genuinely world-class sort of large events. And I think it depends on your brand and your event, but we at Goodwood we're famous for that attention for detail. We're famous for doing it right. And so you do put pressure on yourself, because it has to be, everything we do has to be right. It has to be properly thought through. It has to be beautiful. It has to be all those things that you expect from Goodwood. And you are desperate for people to love it. I mean, you're desperate for when you do something new. There's a pressure with that. But also that's kind of what any event company does, right? It's all about knowing your customer and knowing that what you provide is going to hit a mark. It's going to, they are going to react positively, or the majority of them. You can never say all, but the majority of them are going to react positively to whatever it is you're doing, whatever the new thing is you've introduced. That's easier now. It used to be, there used to be far more, I don't know if it was more fun actually, but there used to be far more sort of gut feel. And it used to be more informal, probably. The way you built new products and things was probably a more informal process. You'd be chatting to people, you'd spend time with the. Now, with communication being so instant and relatively easy, we run within 24 hours of the end of an event. I've got the NPS score. Or the initial view of an NPS score, and it doesn't change that much after the first 24 hours. We get the insights pack, full insights pack, within a couple of weeks. But I mean, I've got the headline feedback within 2 or 3 days, which means you can start. Again, it's a cliche, but any annual event, you literally start doing the planning the week after the last event finished. You start thinking about the next one. You start thinking about 12 months hence. And so the volume of data and the volume of feedback is much greater these days. And you can test things. You can test things online, or you can test things with your customers relatively easily, because the communication is so much better. So that takes some of the risk out of doing things that might not hit the target, because there's no excuse really now, because you can have tested everything and you can ask your customers what they want. Or you can do far more insight and research work before you have to do that sort of thing. But there's still nothing quite like that feeling when you're opening the doors. We did a new event here, Goodwood, which is our dog event, which is 4th year this year, and there's nothing quite like that first day you open a new event or a new part of an event, and that anticipation, nervousness, stress over, are they going to love it? Have we got this right? Are they going to turn up? Again, at least now people book in advance. I mean, I'm so old, I remember when people didn't book in advance. So in those days, literally, you didn't even know if anyone was coming or not. But there's nothing quite like the events game. I love it.
Fantastic. And you talked about that feedback and the fact that you get an NPS score literally within 24 hours of an event. And that's great. It's great to have that insight and feedback, because we respond and it makes you do events even better. Is there a danger, and how do you manage that, I suppose, onslaught of information that we have access to now than we did probably 30, 40 years ago, which was a bit more of a gut feel of how the event went and conversations? How do you manage that yourself, but also as a team, that we don't get so, I suppose, hypercritical or almost get paralyzed with insight data that makes us think we can't move forward on this?
It's almost more, my fear is almost more, you don't just become robotic. We don't just become a widget factory, because it's sort of, you get a load of data in, you do the analysis and the insights, it tells you X, you just go do X. There still has to be an element of, there does have to be a bit of gut feel to it. I think there does anyway. I think that's what makes it fun, but also a place like this, you have to give it, we call it the sort of the Goodwood twist. Whenever we do something, we always want to do it differently. And I mean, there are loads of examples, but that idea of sometimes people don't know what they want until they've seen it and felt it and felt it and touched it, and so that we give our people the free rein to actually use gut feel a bit still, to use their intuition, to they know the events better than anyone. They have a history in them, because a lot of people have been here a long time. That's one of the joys of Goodwood as well. And they sort of, I'd like to think that there's a number of people around this business whose gut feel for the customer is very, very rarely, if ever, wrong. And so a combination of what I like to think now, you use gut feel, you use that intuition, and then you use the data to make sure you're not miles off track. I think the danger, as you say, is you could just become almost sort of, if you become entirely data driven, I suppose, if it becomes entirely just doing what the insights tell you with none of your own sort of feel for it, then I don't think you end up with the sort of magic experiences that we provide, frankly. And you're right, you can become paralyzed. You can spend, you can spend all day obsessing over the feedback and never doing anything about it. And the main thing we do, as I said, is give people free rein, that they still have the backing, the support, the opportunity to actually do things a bit differently. That's what keeps it exciting.
Yeah, fantastic. And I guess all your people immerse themselves in those events when they're happening as well, which gives them a good feel themselves of what's going on and that sort of perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
What has been the sort of most unexpected challenge you faced since you became the CEO of Goodwood? I'm sure there's been many of them, but it's just unexpected one.
Well, I mean, again, it's a sort of, I suppose the biggest challenge we have faced is the same biggest challenge that any business faced in the last sort of 5 years, and that was the COVID years. If you're an event business trying to do, during COVID, that was quite difficult. If your entire world is about bringing lots of people together in one space, when you weren't allowed to do that anymore, that got very scary and challenging, obviously, for us. I mean, outside of the obvious, outside of COVID, the new events, doing Goodwood a few years ago, the amount of planning, thought, panic that goes into any new event, the amount you always forget, actually, you always forget how much work it is trying to do something really, really well for the first time. And you always underestimate, you either underestimate or overestimate just about everything. And reacting in real time and expecting the whole team to react in real time when people start behaving exactly the opposite to how you expected them to, when people don't walk from the car park the way, even that sort of thing, you've got everyone ready at a certain entrance and somehow everyone ends up at the one that you weren't expecting. That's just kind of what happens. And so that staging of a new event where we're all slightly making it up on the hoof, and then reacting to your crowd, reacting to what you're doing, is massively challenging, but massively rewarding.
Fantastic. And you say you give your team sort of freedom, which I like, that freedom to go off and play a bit of gut feel and use obviously a bit of the data. How do you support your team in that, in terms of making sure not only do they have to have freedom, but also when things might be going a little bit wrong, or they might need some guidance? What's the way or reassurance? How do you sort of go about that as a leader?
For me, it's just confidence. It's just confidence. If you instill in your teams, and especially your sort of, the leaders within the organization, the confidence to make those decisions, and they know, again, I mean, loads of this sort of thing are cliches, aren't they? But a big mantra of mine is that whole thing. No one is going to get into massive sort of trouble or whatever, into hot water for making a genuine mistake. If you make the same mistake twice, that's a bit more of a problem. But if you make a mistake trying to do the right thing, that's fine, absolutely fine. And giving people the confidence to try things. And I think some of that confidence does come from the fact, that there is nothing worse than a workforce that are scared. And I've seen, I've taken over places where that's been the case. And it's just not fun. It's not fun for anyone. It's a really sort of toxic, or can be, well, it is always, I think anyway, a sort of toxic environment. So I try to do the opposite. I try to make sure that all the teams have that confidence. They know they can make a mistake and they don't have to hide it. They can be honest about it, because, as I said, as long as the focus was about trying to make one of our trying to make a customer's day better, and for some reason, they made an unforeseen mistake, fine, absolutely fine. And if they know that, and if there is no sort of fear, then people are more likely to be honest. They're more likely to inform the rest of the team when they've made a mistake. Everyone then learns from that mistake, and we all move on. And so confidence, sort of at all levels, is the one thing that if or I feel anyway, if you can instill that in a team, then you're halfway there. And then the other bit is just get good people. Get good people. If you get it's none of this is that complicated. If you get really good people to start with, and then give them your support, give them the confidence to make their own decisions and let them get on with it, it's amazing how often that works.
I really like the idea how you're creating a culture where I suppose people feel safe, psychologically safe. They can take a risk or they can make a mistake, and it's almost that pushes the boundaries, isn't it, of the innovation and the work they may do. How have you created that? I don't know if it's just how you've done it, and just some of the things you do or you model yourself that might be helpful, because cultures don't just happen. There's a sense of intention with it, and it's interesting. I got to know you the last few months, and I know you appear very open, very accessible, and very engaging in terms of how I've got to know you from an outsider, and I guess that's probably amplified internally, I would have thought.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's it. That is it, isn't it? You I think you as a leader have to live it. You have to, if you expect those behaviors from others, you have to show them yourself. I think you have to be open, genuinely. Also, don't say you are and then don't be, because people will find you out in no time, and then once they've found you out, they'll call you out. So, genuinely be open, and there's an element of have fun. There's an element of, because if it looks like I'm sort of having fun, and if it looks, and certainly I always say this to the teams who are delivering any part of anything that we do, whether it's hotel, golf, whether it's one of the events, whatever it is, if we're not enjoying it, how the hell are the people that are paying, how can we expect the paying customers to enjoy it? So, try and make it fun, and try and look, at least look, I need to at all times look like I'm at least enjoying it. Because I do think as well, if the leader is walking around any organization looking like they've got the weight of the world on their shoulders and looking like, it's just another bad day after another bad day, then that's contagious. So no matter how bad your day is going, I'm a great believer in you shouldn't let the wider teams. I've got an inner team who who they will know, if you like, and that's where when there are things that are going wrong, or when, as will always happen, or there are some really difficult challenging things to handle, then there's a team that I've got around me that I'm that I am comfortable sort of sharing that. But on the whole, if you're positive and you look like you're having fun and you are relaxed and you are open and honest and accessible, then that does tend to go through the whole organization. I think an organization very often reflects the senior leadership team. And so again, get the right people in the right place behaving correctly, and that is contagious.
Yeah, totally. And you're talking about role modeling. We know role modeling is the most powerful way to influence a culture, to create change. It's not about what you say, it's about what you do and what people see. And I know that you're incredibly visible within the organization. You go to all the events as when you can and make sure you're there. And I don't think you're just going there just to observe and what's going on, but I'm sure you're there to be there as a support to that team as well, which is incredibly valuable as well. Now, Goodwood has got a rich heritage, as we know, and I just want to almost take your view on how you balance that preserving that rich heritage, but while still evolving to meet almost the modern expectations and that innovation that comes through Goodwood.
Yeah, it is. It is a funny one in a way. I mean, we're over 300 years old, Goodwood as an estate. But I suppose, in a way, sort of innovation and doing things differently and doing things new has kind of been in the DNA of Goodwood all the way through. So successive. I mean, for those who don't know, Goodwood Estate is owned by, it's the family seat of the Dukes of Richmond. So the Duke of Richmond is my boss. But family members for centuries, literally centuries, have been forward thinking, have introduced new things. There's lots of firsts going back to, the first ever written rules of cricket were written here. They're in our archive here. Members of the family have been passionate about car racing, and therefore that's where Goodwood Motor Circuit was born. Post-war, it's always been about a passion and sharing that passion with people, and it's always been about inviting people in. It's always been about sharing sort of Goodwood and sharing our passion for the things we do at Goodwood with as many people as possible. So in that context, actually, being innovative, thinking differently sort of does become easier. You're not actually constrained by the history of the place in a way, because the history of the place has always been to do things slightly differently, or to try new things. So I suppose there's an element of you have to follow the right history. You have to see that side of the history of Goodwood. As I said, if you get too obsessive or too stuck in that we've always done it that way type approach, somewhere like this that has been doing it, that could have been doing it that way for 300 years, you're never going to break out of that. But if you actually focus more on the examples throughout history where we've done things differently and we have changed things, and there are some things that we still, that you do that look remarkably similar. The view I'm looking at now out of my window looks remarkably similar to the view that someone sat in this room 100 years ago would have seen. The view from the racecourse at the top of the hill there is pretty. I mean, the trees will be, the trees are bigger or smaller, I suppose. They'll be a bit, but you still can't see a house. In 1802, sorry, when they first raced there and people first went up there, you wouldn't have been able to see a house. Still can't. That view of the South Downs is the view that people have been enjoying for over 200 years at the racecourse. So there are certain things that you're never going to sort of play with. But within that, there are always elements that you can improve and tweak and touch and as I say, do differently. You do have to, you have to keep moving forward. That's a great thing of His Grace here, of the Duke here. You have to keep innovating. You just do, especially in the events game. You have to keep doing something. If you just do the same thing again and again and again and again, we wouldn't have 250,000 people turning up here for the Festival of Speed every year. The show has to be different. We have to portray it differently. There are external factors that will always happen that mean you have to do things differently. People will consume what you do differently. And so if you just accept that it is, it isn't a chore actually, and it's essential. It is utterly essential that you keep on innovating and evolving the way you do things. If that becomes part of your DNA, which it is here, actually it's not that difficult. And people always think of an old English estate as being, we all still go around doffing caps and and it couldn't be, of course it's not like that. Of course it's not like that, because we live in the it's 2025, and we're a modern, forward-facing company that is constantly trying to do new things.
Yeah, and it's interesting to look back at your history, that you have been innovators, and that's who you are, that's what you are, and that's where you'll continue to. I mean, even the Goodwood was like a innovation in itself, bringing the sort of whole.
For some reason,
dogs.
you've dropped out.
Oh, I can still see you. You can still hear me, so we'll try and carry on. Can you hear me?
For some reason, I couldn't hear what you said then, Julian. I don't know what's happening.
Okay, I'll carry on. Just to say that it's great to hear that there's been an innovative type of approach to Goodwood, and you can look back and see all those moments of how you've changed and adapted and brought new things constantly, which I guess spurs you on. And just as I suppose a final question, what keeps you awake at night? You might sleep soundly actually, as a CEO in a multi sort of faceted organization. You're back, Adam.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what happened there.
That's all right. These things happen. It is live, so that's how things go wrong sometimes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me and see me now?
I can hear you now.
Perfect. But the question is, last question I was going to ask you is, as a CEO, I say, what keeps you awake at night? You may sleep very soundly, but what keeps you awake at night as a CEO of such a multifaceted organization?
A multitude of things, if I'm honest. There are obviously, there's always three things that we judge, or certainly at Goodwood, that I judge myself by, really, or we judge the leadership team. The senior leadership team is judged by. There's the numbers, an obvious one. It is as important that we know our numbers, hit our budgets. We have a very extensive sort of investment plan, which is because the money we make goes back into the estate effectively, and we have a very established and investment plan as to keeping the estate, as in the infrastructure of the estate, sort of moving forwards. And it's you've got to keep feeding the beast. It's a very expensive thing to keep going. We've got Grade 1 listed buildings everywhere. And so there is a pressure to hit a number here, the same as anywhere else. That keeps you awake at night. The customer is the other way we judge ourselves. The NPS score, they're getting it right, delivering the sort of experiences that we challenge ourselves to deliver. And when that's going wrong, that's bad, obviously. And the people, and probably people more than the other two, actually, because in a funny sort of way, if you get the people right, or my belief has always been, if you get the people right and you get the sort of NPS right, if what you're doing is resonating with the customers and you obsess about the customer and you've got really good people, then normally the money follows. So the one that probably keeps me awake more than any other is the people. If there's an issue with either, if there's a gap, if someone is leaving, or for whatever reason there is an issue with one of the sort of key individuals within the organisation, that's all. That's never good. And so the people and the customer bit are always the two most important for me. As I said, we worry about the money, but I do genuinely believe the money sort of follows if you get the other two right. Yeah,
no, I agree with you. Getting people right, because whatever great strategies you have, you've got to have people to execute it and deliver on it. And I say, hearing your customers and pleasing your customer, delighting your customers, they'll pay money and continue to invest, and through that gives you the money. You're right. I've really enjoyed this conversation with Adam, and been some great insights into you and how you lead, but also into the world of Goodwood. If people are interested in connecting you, get in touch with you, what's the best way of doing that?
Normal channel. So I guess LinkedIn is, I suppose LinkedIn is the one everyone uses now, isn't it? But also through Goodwood. The Goodwood is goodwood.com is the website, and you can actually, there's a relatively easy way to get in touch through the website. So either LinkedIn or through the Goodwood website.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for your time today, Adam.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure.